All right, welcome to the new JFK show, number 191, and we're going to turn over our half-hour hourglass, and we're going to roll down the road. All right, tonight, fellas, I'm going to be steering the ship. We've got a couple of things to go over. Number one, we're going to play a game called Spot the Edit, and we'll do that in just a minute. Then we're going to also listen to someone who's overlooked quite often in my mind, is Jackie Kennedy. Is there some things that Jackie could have told us or did tell us that we can gain from going back in time? So, Dr. Fetzer, we're going to listen to what Jackie Kennedy has to say. Then we also have a Lyndon Johnson and Hoover. You know, I know we've all heard this before, but I think we could go back in time and really ascertain some things that we didn't get maybe the first go around. And then we're going to have Don read Omar Gaddafi calling out Israel for the assassination of
Yeah.
Gaddafi, good
so
man.
We got it all.
He will go down in history as a great man.
No. I have something that I want to share with you guys on Gaddafi about Dimona.
All right. Well, we're loaded. We got a great show. All right, so we're going to play our game first. We're going to play Spot the Edit. All right, so we're going to listen to Black Op Radio and Mr. David Denton describing a upcoming conference. And y'all just kind of pay attention a little bit and see when you can spot the edit.
You mean he took out the names of Fetzer and Rivera?
You're giving away to go.
Go ahead.
Right, so here we go. Spot the edit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Black Op Radio. This is your host, Glenn Osanek, and we are speaking in this segment to Professor David Denton. Hello, David.
Hello, Lynn. How are you?
Good. Well, I understand that you're in Washington, D.C. now, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to promote the conference that you're putting on with the JFK Historical Group. Go over who's going to be there, who won't be, how people can get there, and how they can watch live if they want to purchase the live stream as well. So tomorrow, Friday, it's going to start.
Yes, it does start tomorrow, and starts. We're actually having a little get together, meet the speakers and press affair about 3:00, and then after that, in the evening, our keynote speakers back-to-back, Cyril Wecht and Roger Stone, and then we just go on from there. And yeah, it's still a great opportunity. If you're within driving distance, you can still make it. It's a great weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all the way through Sunday evening. And if not, we have our live stream. You can go on our website, jfkdc.com. JFKConferenceDC.com, and it has a live stream button you can click on, and I think for $40 you can get the entire weekend, watch live, or you can come back later on after the conference is over. If you missed something, come back and watch it a couple days later and catch what you missed. So it's a great opportunity. Either way, we'd love to see folks there, and it's going real well. We're tremendously excited about what we're going to accomplish here this weekend.
What are some of the topics that, as an overview, the conference hopes to focus on?
Well, again, as our title indicates, we're referred to it as a big event, new revelations in the JFK assassination and the forces behind his death. I mean, we're a conference that's committed to the idea that the death of JFK was not the act of a lone gunman. We're not here to debate that. We feel like there's enough evidence to suggest that a conspiracy in this case was a historical reality. Now, some folks may want to put us in or marginalize us as being, a fringe conspiracy element. But, this is one of the things I'm going to say tomorrow night is I don't think we're in the fringe at all. I think the fringe is the people in institutions who stubbornly cling to the idea that one person acted alone. I think the public is kind of with us, and it's been that way since day one. And of course, trying to understand the who's and the whys, and that's a little harder to get to pinpoint. But we're going to try to spend a little more time on that this weekend and look at some of the new evidence and some of the new things that come forth. We've got a fantastic group of speakers. I've kind of gotten a few hints and reflections on some of what some of the folks are going to be speaking about, and in some cases, some of the new documents that came out. We're hopeful that in April that something else might happen, and some of the stuff has been redacted. So we'll see. We're going to try to bring light to all those things.
Good. Well, that's what any conference should do on a topic, bring people together and let the speakers and authors let people know what the next few coming months are going to be about. Do you want to go over maybe some of the speakers that are going to be there right now?
Yeah, I can do that. I mean, I probably don't have time to discuss. I don't want to slide anybody, but I'll try to a few people that come to mind and stuff and things. Of course, we already mentioned Dr. Wecht, who's a great American and terrific speaker. He'll be there on Friday night and very passionate about. And of course, he's been one of the guys crying in the wilderness for a long time about the whole and that it should be resolved. It's kind of interesting. Cyril, like I said, he's nationally known, but anybody that has a conference in this area, he's always prepared to be there and call attention to this cause in terms of writing history. In fact, I know he's flying in tomorrow night, and he's hopping a plane the next day on Saturday morning. I think he's going out to testify in an autopsy case or something. It was important enough for him to be here because he knows that this is still an important topic to him. And some other folks in terms of coming to mind, Ed Tatros.
So let's keep in mind he gave Cyril Wecht a pretty good introduction there. He talked about him a little while. Now he's going to talk about Ed Tatros.
A good, close, personal friend of mine. He's always been at all my conferences that I've had, been associated with him. We've always regarded him as one of the top minds in the country on the JFK assassination. I've had conversations with him about, he's just a veritable gold mine of information. He's been on the case since he was 16 years old, when Kennedy was shot, and he's one of those guys that thought, hey, this is great when Jack Ruby killed Oswald. And his dad walked in and told him, look, son, wake up and smell the coffee. Look, there's something wrong here. And from that point in time, when his father told him that, he has been doggedly on this case for the last 50 years. And he's focused a lot on the things coming out of Texas. But a very good broad perspective of the assassination. He's going to bring forth some new things to light. I would highly recommend, if you have any opportunity at all, anybody there, to hear what he's got to say. And he's going to be giving 2 or 3 different presentations. So he's definitely a person to be thinking about if it's going to be at our conference. Phil Nelson, I'm excited about what Phil's going to bring to offer. It's a little bit different with him. Phil's going to be talking about his new book on MLK and the MLK murder. Of course, I believe the 50th anniversary of that fact is coming up in April, and I think he's got some new information to bring forth on that. Well, I could go on, a lot of different people.
Well, you have Roger Stone, right? Roger Stone is
definitely. Roger Stone is going to be there. He's going to be one of our keynote speakers. Roger is a very passionate speaker. Of course, he's in the middle of a lot of politics right now, but we're not concerned about that. We're concerned about the fact what he knows about 1963, and of course, he was an insider with Richard Nixon, and going back to those days, and some revelations about that. He's written a book about the JFK assassination, and very engaging speaker. We look forward to hearing him tomorrow night. Larry Rivera is a terrific researcher who's I've been talking with. In fact, he's helped me a lot in terms of real expert on getting and digging into the documents. He's going to be bringing forth some new information. I'm personally going to be spend some time on some of the new documents. So I'm going to be giving
If y'all didn't spot that edit, y'all weren't paying attention there, so hold on.
a presentation on William Harvey, which is, of course, a key CIA agent. I've had a chance to look at his personnel file, or at least what's been in there. Some of it was redacted, but we're try to put some trying to paint a picture, a portrait of one of the critical people, I think, in this whole story, and kind of a person who obviously, Ed Lansdale, I'm sure you know about Ed Lansdale. Lansdale referred him to as the American James Bond, and by the way, Lansdale and him had a falling out from the new documents. Pretty clear, some of the documents. You imagine Lansdale accuses Harvey of going rogue, and some of the new documents. That's ironic, isn't it? But some things like that kind of paint a picture about who William Harvey was, and a picture that fits very closely into the eye and some of the things that we think he might have well been involved with. Let's just put it that way. Trying to think some other folks that come to mind.
Well, let me ask you this.
Soldier.
Yes,
go ahead.
How do people sign up? They just go to the website, or can you just walk up to the hotel? Can people walk in off the?
And there was the biggest edit of all. See, when he first talked about Sarawak, he talked about him for a long time. Then he talked about Ed Tatro for a long time. Then Phil Nelson came along, and boy, it certainly got a lot shorter what he let him say. And then we had Larry Rivera. He's going to bring forth a little bit about the document. And I'm going to bring, then he started talking about himself. That's a bunch of bullshit, man. He cut out all that. And then, of course, do you think that David Denton is going to not mention Dr. Fetzer? I doubt that. All right. So now I've been looking at the average interview on Black Op. It's about an hour, hour and a half, hour, 10 minutes. Poor old David Denton's 19 minutes and 20 seconds. So he was trimming his butt off. And so I can just tell I've done so much editing in my life, and so there was no word of JFK. Boy, Larry, you didn't get any billing hard at all. And I could tell where the edit was when he said, see, he was going to say more about Larry Rivera, but he was able to use something that he said later about the documents and saying that Larry was going to have documents and make it blend like it was all together. But he talked about Larry more than that.
Well, we've already spoken about those documents here. Remember when we did a couple of weeks ago those nefarious documents on Operation Northwoods? Remember where they were talking about blowing up planes and boats and stuff like that, and which were contained in the new documents. And I did.
Yeah.
I did assist some of the speakers, in obtaining new documents. And I believe that one of the great revelations of that conference was the Orestes Pena HSCA testimony, which had been suppressed since 1978, and which we came out. I mean, we did that about a month or two ago before. Yeah. And I just want to say that while I was giving that presentation in Washington, people were just gasping, at the information that was being presented at the time. And I'm talking specifically about the relationship of Warren de Bruys with Oswald and how Orestes Pena knew about everything that was going on there in New Orleans, and how he just said, look, Lee Oswald and Warren de Bruys were extremely close. In fact, they were so close that when Lee Oswald went to Dallas, de Bruys followed him to Dallas, okay? And how all the agents, not only de Bruys, but all the agents across all the different agencies used to meet at the different restaurants down there around New Orleans, around the Havana Bar, and how de Bruys used to go out there and hang out, and talk to the people, about the investigations that he was conducting. And Orestes Pena, was even beat up, in an alley, in New Orleans, because he was talking to Harold Weisberg, okay, and how Harold Weisberg drew heavily on his relationship with Orestes Pena for his book Oswald in New Orleans, O-I-N-I. So, it's O-I-N-O, I'm sorry. And so, this is old stuff here, Gary. I think we've already covered, a lot of this stuff. And I just wanted to finish by saying that we have uncovered a lot of information on Lansdale and on King Harvey. in the new documents. And as they say that there's no smoking guns in there, there are smoking guns. And I've been saying this, since Washington. In fact, I presented a collage there with all the different puzzle pieces and everything, and how everything starts to come together. And I've been saying this, so many times before, that, so many books that have been written before have drawn and have relied on a limited amount of information. But now that you have all this new information coming out, you have to reevaluate and you have to reposition, those theses. Okay.
Right. Yeah, you might have to rewrite that book again. So, Dr. Fetzer, you didn't make it on Black Op. What happened?
Len used to tell me how he would never speak ill of me behind my back, and that he would always stick up for me. But obviously now he won't speak of me at all. So I suppose there's some sort of.
He's not.
Very funny.
He's not talking about
what did I co-host that show for 5 years?
Something like that. But,
for crying out loud.
As if David then not going to mention you.
I could tell there was something about this Eugenio coming in that didn't smell right, and of course it's become quite a stench in there.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking the other day. I mean, I used to think Jim Eugenio was pretty good. I mean, he does all this research and he's pretty meticulous. This was, seriously 8, 9, 10 years ago when I thought Jim Eugenio was good. And then as time goes on and you start doing public appearances and you start looking deeper at things, and it comes out. Yeah, he's
you get your heart broken again and again and again. Man, I was actually timid to talk to him one time in Dallas. I went up to him and, can I ask you something? So we've come a long way. There's no doubt about that. So, all right. So there you go. That's going to be the end of Spot the Edit, and we'll go on to the next thing. All right, guys. I think we leave Jackie out quite often, so I think we need to go ahead and see what Jackie had to say about Lyndon Johnson being chosen as the vice president.
Yeah.
So you missed the business of the great Stevenson ad.
Yeah, I just saw it on television.
Lyndon saying, you saw things like the debate between the president and Lyndon. And you missed Lyndon's people going around talking about Addison's disease.
Oh, I remember that because when Lyndon Johnson came after the convention to our house at the Cape, we moved out of our bedroom. It was a very small house there, so that Lady Bird could have that room. We were sort of sleeping in a single bed in this tiny little guest room. And then we had to go over to Mr. Kennedy's, which was where all the press would meet the next day. And Lyndon plunked himself down in Mr. Kennedy's chair. I was just thinking, do you know what chair you're sitting in after the things you said about that man? And anytime Lyndon would talk that night, Lady Bird would get out a little notebook. I've never seen a husband and a wife so. She was sort of like a trained hunting dog. He'd say something as innocent as, I don't know, does your sister live in London? And Lady Bird would write down Lee's name in London, just everything. I mean, she had every name, phone number. It was a sort of a funny kind of way of operating.
Mm-hmm. Like a hockey team.
Yeah, well, just she always had these 3 green notebooks just filled with everything.
We talked about this the other day, but it was not on the tape. So you were about the problem of Lyndon's going on the ticket.
Oh, well, I think everyone was disappointed because of all the people they liked Lyndon Johnson the least. And I must say, Symington behaved awfully nicely there, didn't he?
Yes.
You never thought he was any great statesman or anything, but he was just such a gentleman the way he did that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I know that made Jack sad. I even wrote Symington a letter, which I asked him to burn. And he wrote me back that he burned it, saying I wish he had been the vice But I know Jack had to do it because I have Lyndon as his running mate to annul him as majority leader, because here this man with this enormous ego would have been just enraged and blocking Jack in every way. And yet and keeping everything in. I know he kept that session in before the convention.
I think he called it before the convention.
Yeah, because that was it. So Jack couldn't get out and campaign and do more things. I mean, he'd done something before to really make things difficult for him.
I recall it was called before the convention, but took place after.
Well, he certainly didn't make, he just, if you'd had him up there with that enormous ego and thwarted and bitter, so nobody was happy about it. Everyone was even amazed that he accepted.
Mm-hmm.
I think, well, some other people can tell you about it, going down into his room and everything.
Phil Graham was a great go-between, and told me, I have notes somewhere, there after the Friday, I went out and had dinner with Phil. He gave me a great account of his role as kingmaker, intermediary. And I think Joe also thinks that he was responsible.
Pause.
Robbie could really tell.
Pause.
Yeah.
Pause, please.
It's pause. Go ahead.
I think this is exactly what Jim has been talking about for so many years.
I know.
About Lyndon, being not only the ego that he had, but being the one stumbling block, for any legislation that JFK would have had, and him being forced on the ticket. I mean, Jim, this is exactly what you've been talking about so many years here.
And you can see that Jackie is not mentioning the other points of the pressure, namely about Jack's health, that he was suffering from Addison's and wouldn't live a long, healthy life, or especially that he'd cavorted with beautiful women, some of whom were spies for East Germany, both items of information he obtained from J. Edgar Hoover. So Jack would have emphasized Lyndon's threat to bottom up any legislation.
Dr. Presser, remember 353. She mentions that disease at the very beginning of the clip.
Yes, she does. Yeah, she does.
Oh, good.
Listen real good.
Yeah, she did.
So you missed, of course, the sort of business of the great Stevenson.
Yeah, I just saw it on television.
And Lyndon saying, we saw things like the debate between the President and Lyndon. And you missed Lyndon's people going around talking about Addison's disease. And,
oh, I remember that because when Lyndon Johnson came back to the convention to our house, we moved out of our bedroom. It was a very small house there, so that.
Yeah, you caught that?
Good, that's very interesting.
Yeah, he said Lyndon Johnson's people were all running around saying he's got Addison's disease. Now, how many times have you told us that?
Yeah.
You know what comes to mind here, Jim, is that we have never been told what Jackie's impression was, her position on the entire assassination. If you look at her Warren Commission testimony, she's talking about holding JFK's head together.
Right. She said from the front he looked just fine, but she had a terrible time holding his skull and brains.
Exactly.
And so, they didn't publish that on grounds of privacy, but obviously because it blew apart the whole magic bullet and the ridiculous charade being perpetrated by the Warren Commission.
That's right, of course. And now with your discovery of frame 374 and my discovery of 343,
right?
And with the obvious hole in the back of the head.
Yes.
And how the Harper fragment practically fits perfectly.
Yes.
In that void there. And which Dr. Mantic has so convincingly demonstrated in his book. And Jackie, and not only that, how Jackie, we never knew we have never been told exactly what happened on Elm Street, what exactly she told the Warren Commission, because remember that a lot of her testimony was classified, and she never actually told how, you know, the motorcade came to a stop, how the Secret Service men surrounded the limo, you know, with guns drawn, you know, how Hart just went between the limos and everything, and how Jackson went up the grassy knoll and everything. You know, events that are not in the Zapruder film, but are known by people who were there. You know, for example, Dave Powers and the other stooge, what was his name of the other JFK aide?
Yeah.
What was it? O'Donnell, Kenny O'Donnell.
Yeah,
you know?
Kenny O'Donnell, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these guys knew what happened, you know, and these guys were there, you know, and they took that secret to their graves, you know.
I know, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah. You know,
O'Neill called out Kenny, I think, about it, you know, at a dinner.
Yeah.
Said they were
but he
all over the place. And Tim said, well, that's not what you told the Warren Commission. And he got real sheepish and said, well, yeah, you know, the Kennedy family wanted to get it behind them, so he told them what they wanted to hear.
That's right. But
Jack would have rolled over in his grave at that.
Yeah. But, you know, those guys were supposed to be Kennedy real close.
Closest friends.
That's right. You know, so.
They might as well have been LBJ stooges.
Yeah. And that's why Beverly Brunson, you know, said, you know, why are JFK's people, you know, being, you know, so sold out on this thing, you know?
Yeah.
She even said, you know, they sold us down the river. You know, that's one of her favorite expressions, you know, Beverly Brunson.
Good.
On Robert Kennedy and the entire Kennedy family, you know, not really, you know, sticking up for themselves and the family, you know, and denouncing, you know, this coup d'etat, you know, and this blatant murder of JFK right there in the middle of Elm Street, you know, in Dallas, you know, in the middle of the day.
And we're looking at his killer right here.
Yeah.
All right, you ready to roll on?
Oh, just, you know, one last point. Remember, don't forget, Lyndon Johnson was Jewish. He wasn't a Texan. He wasn't a Southern. Yeah. Remember, both of the maternal, the grandparents on the maternal side were Jewish. So there's little doubt Lyndon Johnson was Jewish. Not a Texan, not a Southerner, not an American. He was a Jew.
I think that makes a difference, Don.
Did he even have any cattle? Well, I know George Bush didn't have any cattle.
What about Josepha?
Josepha Johnson?
His sister he had murdered by Mac Wallace.
Oh, poor Josepha, man. Woo, man. You did not want LBJ around you for any reason at any time.
Gosh, I don't know, but I suppose Bobby could really tell you all of that because
Bobby was against it.
But I mean, Bobby knows.
Real quickly, the announcer, it was kind of hard to hear, says, how did Lyndon get on the ticket or something like that?
Yeah.
So he's answering the question about how in the hell did Lyndon Johnson get on the ticket?
Right.
But I mean, Bobby knows. All I know is that a call was placed at something like 8 o'clock in the morning, and Lady Bird answered, and Lyndon was still asleep. And then Jack went down. Lyndon said he'd come up. Jack said no, he'd go down to his apartment. Lyndon just accepted right away.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what had gone back and forth, and they all were rather surprised.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if all these people were kingmakers or not.
Joe and Phil waited on Senator Kennedy on the Tuesday. He said he had to put Johnson on the ticket. The president said nothing. And, but then subsequently, the president, according to Phil, the president called him, and I forget where this, and asked him about calling, what he should do about calling. Said, I want to go ahead with Lyndon. And I think then the president called Lyndon directly. Lyndon was asleep. And then all this business started. And then later the thing seemed to get off the tracks. And Phil was called in to kind of put it together.
I see. Okay.
the president went to Los Angeles, did he talk very much about, does he speculate about vice presidency?
No, he really didn't. He was at the Cape, and I flew down with him to New York, and we stayed did we stay the night at that Idlewild Hotel, or else I just saw him off and went back to the Cape. And said goodbye to him. I guess we did stay the night, because the Truman thing was sometime. But he really didn't. It was more just to get it himself.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go, Dr. Fetzer. When I heard this tape, it's just everything you've been saying for a long, long time.
Yeah, I'm very glad you found it, Gary. She had a wonderful voice. To me, the only voice maybe I like as much as that of Marilyn Monroe.
You're never going to find that type of class as a first lady in the history of the United States.
Extraordinary, Larry. You put your finger on it, really.
Yeah, well, what about Hillary Clinton?
With a spoon.
We've been going down the hill, huh, since then.
In honor of Jackie, let's not go any further about the first ladies. All right.
Jackie, wait a minute. Jackie knew French, Spanish. She went to Venezuela with JFK, and she was so fluent in Spanish. JFK, stepped aside and said, look, this is the woman in charge here,
Hey,
Right.
All right, Dr. Fetzer, could Marilyn Monroe do all that?
Well, Marilyn's strengths and virtues lay in different areas.
Yeah, that's for sure.
JFK
This area right here.
JFK would say, I'm just a guy, accompanying, this beautiful woman,
Well, that's what I said when he was the man who accompanied Jacqueline Kennedy to Paris.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a break right now. This is the new JFK show number 191. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the new JFK show number 191. We're chasing rabbits, as Larry Rivera likes to say. We're going over some different videos and such, and I find them very, very revealing. We're going to go ahead along with the same vein, and we're going to go and listen to a quick one about Nixon.
Story of George Christian shortly thereafterwards. George Christian was shot.
Wait, let me get some more mine. Hold on. I'll do the edit.
Story one time George Christian shortly thereafterwards. George Christian was Johnson's press secretary, perhaps remember him, and became press secretary for Governor Connolly, who was our head of Democrats for Nixon. We were meeting in the Oval Office. I saw the morning news report, and I just happened to casually mention to George. He says, well, I'll bet you that President Johnson is real pleased when he finds that now they're calling me the #1 mountain. George Christian said, don't be too sure. He says, LBJ, he never likes to be #2.
That's right. Just as Nixon said, they both wanted to be president, he and Lyndon, but he wasn't willing to kill for it.
Yeah, he doesn't like being #2, and what is it? He never bets on anything but sure things. I know I've heard you say that before.
Yep.
So it was a sure thing. So
that's such an offensive photograph, the way Lyndon is nosing over to Jackie. I really dislike that photograph.
I know.
Yeah, he shouldn't be in the same room as that woman. That's for sure. And he was one ugly sucker, and he married so only his wife is uglier than he is.
But
No
she was
doubt.
very wealthy, Gary.
Jackie,
Very wealthy.
yeah, she didn't need Jack's butt. There's no doubt about it, man. She was doing quite okay on her own. All right, so should we break it up before we go to the LBJ Hoover phone conversation and let Dr. Fester, are you going to read for us? Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. Let's go ahead and do that. Let me get rid of this one. This. All right. So this is Gaddafi talking about the JFK assassination. Now, the whole thing is 7 minutes long, and I think it's important to go over. Obama was in office, and of course in Arabic, I guess, is what they speak in Libya. And I'm going to go ahead. And so just go ahead and read along. I'll have to turn the volume down because we won't be able to understand the words. So
but
go
I
ahead.
would like to hear his voice. Turn it,
For a little while.
yeah, not full.
Yeah, I think I have something better than that.
Okay, well, I want to do this. We got plenty of time.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
It's been proven there's no democracy in the U.S. Rather, you got to get that off, Gary. It's a dictatorship with no different than the dictatorships of Hitler and Napoleon, Mussolini, Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, and the rest of the tyrants. In the days of crazy Reagan, the American president issued a presidential order to launch a war against Libya, for example, a presidential order to besiege Libya, a presidential order to boycott Libya, and so on. Is this a democracy or a dictatorship? There are elections in America now. Along came a black citizens of Kenyan African origins, a Muslim. See, he knows more about Obama than we did. Who had studied in an Islamic school in Indonesia. His name is Obama. All the people in the Arab and Islamic world and in Africa applauded this man. They welcomed him and prayed for him and for his success. And they may have even been involved in legitimate contribution campaigns to enable him to win the American presidency. But we were taken by surprise when our African Kenyan brother, who's an American national, made statements that shocked all his supporters in the Arab world, in Africa and in the Islamic world. We hope that this is merely an elections clearance sale, as they say in Egypt. In other words, merely an elections lie. As you know, this is the farce of election. The person lies and lies to people just so they'll vote for him. And afterward, when they say to him, you promised this and that, he says, no, that was just election propaganda. This is the farce of democracy for you. He says, this was propaganda and you thought I was being serious? I was fooling you to get your vote. All are willing, it will turn out that this was merely elections propaganda. Obama said he would turn Jerusalem into the eternal capital of the Israelis. Obama said that. This indicates that our brother Obama is ignorant of international politics, as is his successor, Donald Trump, and is not familiar with the Middle East conflict. We thought he would say, I've decided that if I win, I will monitor the Dimona nuclear plant in order to find out about the nuclear bombs and other weapons of mass destruction in Israel's possession. He undoubtedly had this in mind. When he talked about Iran and its nuclear program, he undoubtedly had Dimona in mind. But when he was thinking about Dimona, he undoubtedly had the fate of former President Kennedy on his mind as well.
There you go.
This guy doesn't miss a lot of bet. He undoubtedly had Kennedy decide to monitor the Dimona nuclear plant.
Yeah, we can talk about it for a second, you guys. Yeah, Gaddafi's got it going on.
Well, he was a real smart guy. He was a visionary. I mean, he had a conception of life, making life for the Libyan people comfortable, safe, secure. I mean, the guy really was a heroic figure who was dealt with most severely by some of the petty despots of our time, including Hillary Clinton and the Rothschilds and the French.
He actually shared a tiny piece of the wealth in the oil revenues, and everyone was wealthy. Everyone had
That's right.
their
Yeah, well, okay. Well, speaking of Kennedy and Dimona, let me just read a couple of paragraphs from Kennedy's letter to Ben-Gurion. This is Kennedy wrote a letter to David Ben-Gurion. I am sure you will agree that there is no more urgent business for the whole world than the control of nuclear weapons. We both recognized this when we talked together 2 years ago, and I emphasized it again when I met with Mrs. Meyer just after Christmas. The dangers in the proliferation of national nuclear weapons systems are so obvious that I am sure I need not repeat them here. It is because of our preoccupation with this problem that my government has sought to arrange with you for periodic visits to Dimona. When we spoke together in May 1961, you said that we might take whatever use we wished of the information resulting from the first visit of American scientists to Dimona, and that you would agree to further visits by neutrals as well. I had assumed from Mrs. Meyer's comment that there would be no problem between us on this.
I've been told, by the way, that when they had the Americans visit, they had cemented up a wall artificial so they couldn't visit the entire facility, which was vast.
Yeah, the elevator bay was cemented shut, so you couldn't go down and see the real control room. They built a fake control room.
Yeah.
Kind of like what Enron did. When the regulators showed up, they went to a fake room.
And escaped through a fake room? Wow.
Yeah, the real Dimona control room was never accessed by any American scientist.
Exactly. And of course we know as soon as Kennedy was killed, there were no more Dimona inspections, and the total Israeli effort turned 180 degrees as opposed to what Kennedy was doing. All right, so here we go. Got another couple of minutes with this.
He insisted on doing so in order to determine whether or not it produced nuclear weapons. The Israelis refused, but he insisted. This crisis was resolved with the resignation of Ben-Gurion. He resigned so he'd not have to agree to the monitoring of the Dimona plant, and gave the green light for the killing of Kennedy. Kennedy was killed because he insisted on monitoring the Dimona plant. This image was undoubtedly on Obama's mind. He undoubtedly wanted to talk about this, but decided not to. We expected him to say, if I win, I will implement the one-state solution. The Isra'tine, which appears in Obama's, this idea constitutes the final deep-rooted and historical solution. It is impossible to establish two midget states in this area. What kind of country is only 15 kilometers deep? Well, the so-called Israel is only 15 kilometers deep. There are 5 million Palestinians there. We expected Obama to say, I've decided to return millions of Palestinian refugees to the land of Palestine, from which they were expelled in 1948 and 1967. This is the change that the people applaud. The change the American people, the black people in America want. We expected him to say, I will strive for the independence and unity of the Kurdish nation. This nation must take its place under the sun in the Middle East. The Kurdish nation is torn apart, tormented, prosecuted, colonized by everyone. He should have supported it, instead supporting the collaborators, while sacrificing the future of the Kurdish nation. Mm-hmm. This is change. The thing we fear most. is that the black man suffers from an inferiority complex. This is dangerous. If our brother Obama feels that because he is black, he doesn't have the right to rule America, that would be a disaster. Because such a feeling would make him behave whiter than the white.
Obviously, you didn't know about Obama's real background, huh?
And I know this guy's into an extreme in his persistence. We say to him, brother, the whites and blacks in America are equal. They are all immigrants. America belongs neither to the whites nor to the blacks. America belongs to its original inhabitants, the Indians. Both the whites and the blacks immigrated to America, so they are equal. And Obama has the right to hold his head high and say, I am a partner in America. This is my land as much as it is yours. If it's not my land, it's not yours either. It's the land of the Indians. You are immigrants, and so are we. We still hope that this black man will take pride in his African and Islamic identity and in his faith. And that he will know that he has rights in America and that he will change America from evil to good.
Uh-oh.
This Gaddafi knew what he was talking about. And that America will establish relations that will serve it well with other people, especially the Arabs. That was wonderful, Gary.
Gaddafi,
That was wonderful, Gary. I'm so glad you came up with that. And the Jackie tape. That was most wonderful.
Yeah. Wait till we roll out LBJ talking to old Hoover. You kind of take.
I know that tape. I know that tape well.
Yeah. So,
Larry, you wanted to add something.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say that, you know, obviously he did not have all the information on Obama, you know, and his credentials, you know, prior to 2008. And so.
Larry, he had more on Obama than we, the American people, had when we elected him president.
Well, I'm talking about his CIA connections.
Oh, yeah, sure, of course. But he probably got the Kenyan thing right, and that he was Muslim. I mean, I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, his mom's.
I'm thinking about how Obama was just another, you know, puppet, you know, in a string of, you know, being controlled by the puppet masters, you know, way up above, you know, the.
Look how incisive he is about the Mona and Ben Gurion and JFK.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's crystal clear in his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, he actually places a lot of blame on the assassination on those people.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm fixing to pull some up real quick.
Go ahead, Don.
Oh, okay. Well, there's some speculation. Obama's mom, Stanley Ann Dunham, was Jewish. Now, I haven't been able to confirm that. Her identity is a little bit mysterious, to say the least.
Look, he was a disgrace and a traitor to the United States. Any way you cut it.
Well, yeah, the man had no business being president of the United States. And
right. Well, he wasn't qualified to be president. Right. Technically, he didn't satisfy the constitutional requirements.
No, and neither did John McCain. So,
yeah. Well, thank God we were spared McCain, but that's a problem. How can you vote for the alternative candidates in these cases?
Yeah, I'd like to show you what America bringing democracy to your country does.
It's a lot of good, hasn't it, Gary? Look at the improvement.
Right.
Oh, 30 years wrong.
Yeah, I mean, this is the exact same.
Okay, a couple of points here about, okay, once Gaddafi was overthrown, Gaddafi had stopped the African push into Europe. And once Gaddafi was gone, the floodgates opened, and that's when this refugee crisis started. So that was one of the main reasons that they took him out.
Well, Soros probably was pushing for taking Gaddafi out then.
Yes, yeah. Soros, you know, he's a Jew. His real name is Georgy Schwarz. Yeah, he's big on flooding all white countries with Africans. And that's the main agenda. That was the main agenda in Libya, was to get Gaddafi out of the way and then let the sub-Saharan Africans flood into Europe.
Yeah, it's just terrible what we've done to all these wonderful nations in the Middle East. Larry, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Larry.
All right. See you
Oh,
guys
you
later.
gonna crash?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. If y'all want to call it tonight, we can call
We'll
it the
just-
show there, fellas.
Oh, call it off here? Yes, we can do that. We can do that. We can do that. Great show. Great having you here, Larry. Good,
All
clips,
right.
good clips, good catch. Even the interview with Leno Sanik, who has sunk far, in my opinion, I'm sorry to say. This is really unfortunate.
Yeah.
But there was a time when he was a good guy and made an honest effort to be fair and balanced. There was a time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
All right. So,
call it.
yeah, we'll call it the new JFK show number 191. Will be played.